So, hello. I was checking some posts on social media and I noticed that Zod has a version 4 now, which is in beta. And I thought maybe it's a good time to just take a step back and just go through everything again to see what is Zod, how we can use it, how can it help us, what is the differences between version 4 and 3, which was released a long time ago, I think 2021, something like that. And basically, the context will be using Zod in the environment of backend development. So it's going to be mainly for backend developers. Of course, as a TypeScript developer, you can just understand whatever I'm going to talk about. I'm not a Zod professional, by the way. I'm using it. I really don't know what is happening behind the scenes. So I'm just a consumer of this technology. I thought maybe it's a good idea to just, for me as well, to just go through the source code of it and see how we can use it. And also, the whole context is going to be about the comparison of Zod and class-validator in NestJS framework, because I'm a backend developer. 99% of the time I'm just doing some NestJS coding. And I've seen lots of developers using class-validator, which I am against of it because I no longer see it as a up-to-date kind of package and also as flexible as Zod. So that's why I was aiming for having such a video to just take a look at it together. So I'm not going to teach anything. I'm not a professional of TypeScript, Zod, NestJS. I'm a developer. I want to just walk you through the way I realize how a new package works. Let's get started. First of all, if you don't know what is Zod, let's get started with that one. So Zod, as its own documentation says, Zod is a TypeScript first validation library. Using Zod, you can define schemas you can use to validate data from a simple string to a complex nested object. So that's how we have to use Zod, but I'm gonna show you in practice that how exactly it looks like. So I have a terminal. I've created a new TypeScript project, and I have a main.ts which has a console.log, and I just tried it with TS Node, and it's running. Hopefully, it will run. And the only thing that we have to do is to install the Zod now. And how are you going to install it is like, I usually do like npm Zod. And I will find out that, the name of the package is Zod, so you can just simply say pm add Zod. The reason I'm using pm is that it's optimized, I think. So, I mean, whenever you've used something before, it's going to be a hard link of that package from a global kind of directory to this project, and I think that's a very good approach when it comes to downloading and installing packages, so that it's much faster and also optimized than npm and yarn. So just feel free to use whatever you want to use. pm add Zod is going to do the whole thing for us. Now we have the Zod, and now if we check the package.json, you're going to see that by default Zod has version 3.24.2. So the version 4 is in beta, and that's why that it's not installed as version 4, but that's fine. I'm going to show you how it works in version 3, and then we can just go into the version 4 differences and these kind of things. Let's import Z from Zod, I think. That's the first thing that we have to do. And let's start with a very basic kind of thing. So const str equals z.string. And so what does it mean? It creates a kind of schema. So first of all, the Zod works with schemas. So you create schemas. What is a schema? It's a kind of template kind of thing that you specify for each field of that schema. Or if it's a single kind of field, which is this one, for example, you define what exactly should be the type of the field, what should be the length, for example. Then you have lots of other built-in functions that you can validate if the field which is being used in your runtime is a correct one or not. So that's why it's a very important thing, because when it comes to backend development, you shouldn't trust the data that is sent by the front end or your client or whoever that uses your API. So that's the time that you are going to use Zod. You're going to build schemas that you will say, okay, for this specific endpoint, this is the only thing that you can send to me. And for example, the field username in the body of the sign-in endpoint should not be, the length of it shouldn't be more than 64 characters, or it shouldn't be lesser than, 2, for example. So that I'm going to show you all of those. So now here I've created a very simple schema, which is str. I'm going to call it str schema to make sure that it represents a schema when it comes to the clean code. And with Zod, with the Z thing, I can just simply say it's going to be a string. And then let me create another variable, for example, name, maybe, which is Emad, my name. And then I'm going to validate this name against of that schema that I've built. There are two ways of validating. The first one is a safe parsing, and the second one is like parsing it. And the safe parse returns you the error, but the parse just throws an error that might break your application. So you have to consider this when you are building developing. So let's just do safe parse that I can show you what is going to be the returned data of the safe parse. So const validation response, for example, or validation result is going to be, let's say, str schema safe parse, as you can see, and I will pass in the name. So I'm telling Zod to validate name based on str schema rules that we made here, right? And I'm going to do a console.log of validation result. That's the whole thing that we had to build. Now let's do pnpm ts node main.ts. The response object of safe parse is returning two fields. The first one is if it is a successful kind of validation, so the success is true because Emad is a string, and it also returns the data that we've passed it into the safe parse as the first argument and the only argument, let's say. So let's go back to the code again, that I can show you something else. Now I want to add more rules to it. I want to say it should be, I'm not sure if it is min or min length. Let's continue with min length maybe, and say it should be at minimum it should be 5 characters, and I think that's not a correct one. The number has no call. Yeah, let's go with min, plain min. I'm not sure which one was it, so I was just experimenting. And now as you can see, Emad is 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. And let's run the code now to see what is going to be the result. And as you can see, the success is false because Emad consists of 4 characters, but we're expecting the name to be at least 5 characters. Going back to the code again, by the way, maybe we can just split the... Yeah. But this time, the response also had something as a getter, I think. I will show you again. This one. The best way to see those is stringifying them. I'm going to use validation result. I'm going to say null 2 and run the code again. Correct. So the error is a object and it has issues field. An issues field is an array of objects that will show you what are the errors based on the fields. So for example, here the code says it's too small. Minimum it should be 5. The type should be string, inclusive, true, exact, false. And the message, the error message, is a human readable message that you can just return this one to your client maybe as well. So let's talk about the path as well. Let's remove all of these and create a new schema, which is going to be an object instead of a simple, let's say, schema, which was previously written by me here as a string one. So const, for example, sign in schema. In a real world scenario, you might have a sign in a schema, z object, and then there I'm gonna be like username should be a string of minimum 5. Password. Oh, let's use email here because I want to show you that it has also email validation. But then you cannot use the min because email itself is a... Why? Why not? Maybe it's string email. Yeah, exactly like that. So it's a string and it's a email. And as the second field, I'm gonna be like z should be, the password should be, sorry, string as well. And here I'm going to create a new variable, sign, or for example request body, and email is, I don't know, something wrong, and the password is also a string. And now I'm going to validate it, request body. The thing that we're expecting here is that the email should be returned as an issue because that's not a correct email address. And as you can see, there's an issue email message says invalid email, and there's the path. So this path shows exactly what is the path of that property in your schema. Let's create another nested object as well. So data, oh sorry, that shouldn't be like that. Data is another object that will include, for example, city, right? And city should be a string as well. What about change this one to date of birth, DOB, and make it number? I want you to show you that, okay, you can use multiple types. I mean, it's not just these strings and objects. You can use numbers, booleans, and these kind of things. DOB is active, for example, should be boolean. Let's update our request body as well. So data should be there. DOB, as DOB, I'm going to pass in 25. And is active should be false, for example. Now I expect the error to be on the 25 as well, because we are expecting the DOB as a number, but it is passed in as a string here. And look at the path here. Path is like an array. It has 2 strings, and then DOB is a property of date. So this gives you a very good flexibility of accessing your schema's shape and also to create customized kind of messages as well. So I'm not sure what was that. So that's it. That's it. By the way, you can create your own messages as well. For example, here you can say message, the DOB should be a number. So if you look at here, now it's expect the number, receive the string. But now the message should be changed to the DOB should be a number. So that's the whole idea of using Zod. That is something that you can use for validating your inputs to your application, or also you can use it for making contracts between, for example, different microservices, or you can just use it for lots of, let's say, different cases. But the question is that how is it used in NestJS? Because right now, the very common way of validating data in NestJS is using class validators. Let's take a look at the class validators, because I want you to see the difference there. Class validator, NestJS. Yeah, that's it. So you create DTOs. Of course, you can create DTOs based on Zod as well, Zod schemas as well. I'm going to just show you how you can integrate it into NestJS. But the whole point is that right now in NestJS, the class validator is based on classes. It's not really in the way of functional programming. Of course, the whole structure of NestJS is based on OOP, because I think it's based on Angular structure as well, which is also OOP. I'm not a OOP guy. even though I use NestJS a lot. As much as I can, I try to use functional kind of things instead of using classes and creating instances, and I really don't like that. Of course, you have the same ability, you have the same functionality when it comes to class-validator as well. You have some decorators which are exported from class-validator. You can just use them. For example, isEmail is not empty. I don't know. Is a string optional? Oh, by the way, I had to show you this one as well. So you can make a field optional as well. So you say isActive is a Boolean type, but it's also optional. So it's not mandatory to be sent when we are validating it. So I just showed you what is the difference of class-validator and Zod, but behind the scenes also, there are some differences. In Zod, you have built-in TypeScript first kind of type interfaces, but in Zod, you have to write your types yourself, first of all. Just be aware of that. And I just explained the pure functions concept as well. So the Zod has functional style. The class validator requires classes and decorators. You can reuse these schemas. You can create very, very nested objects. I don't know, complex ones. But with class validators, based on my experience, it's not that much flexible when it comes to building nested objects of arrays of, I don't know, different types. But both are used for runtime validation, no doubt there. The class validator by itself cannot transform your structures, but you have to use class transformer, which is commonly used beside class validator to transform your structures to different, let's say, structures. But when it comes to Zod, you can just use .transform and then everything is going to be done for you. Disadvantage for Zod is that you have to put some effort to integrate it with NestJS. But class validator, I think it's built by someone in NestJS team. I'm not sure about that. We have to check that one. But it has a very good integration with that. And as you can see, the official document is suggesting class validator instead of Zod. And also, a very, very important factor is the bundle size, which in Zod, it's really small. I think it's something like 2 kilobytes. But for class validator, it's really heavy. It's heavier because of the metadata and decorators and these kind of things. Let's go into the integration of Zod and NestJS now. Let's create a NestJS project, NestJS documentation. I think I know the command where I'm searching for it. So let's create a new one. Let's go to temp directory nest new Zod NestJS maybe. Of course, pnpm, and I think I have Zod NestJS here. Nice. So it's a typical NestJS setup. We have our main TS. I think we can try to run it to make sure that it's working. I think it's pnpm start dev. Exactly. Let's go into the documentation of NestJS again. Let's come to the pipe section. We have to read what is pipe. So a pipe is a class annotated with the injectable decorator, which implements the pipe transform interface. Pipes have two typical use cases: transformation, transform input data to be desired form, for example, from string to integer. Validation, evaluate input data, and if valid, simply pass it through unchanged. Otherwise, throw an exception. Okay. But the point is that because I have implemented it before, the whole thing is that I told you we need a pipe. Let's create a new directory, I think, maybe, and call it common. And in common, let's have something like pipes. And in pipes, I'm going to have Zod validation. Zod validator pipe maybe is a better one. Zod, and of course you cannot name files like that in NestJS. Zod validator .pipe.ts. And so what is going to be the content of this file? First of all, as it explained in the documentation, it should be an injectable class. So I'm going to export a class, export class Zod validation pipe, which implements the pipe transform from NestJS common. And of course, we're gonna have a constructor. It's gonna be private schema because we want to be able to send the schema when we're using this class as the argument of its constructor. So schema can be Zod schema, but I think you have to import that actually. But we have not installed it yet. I think that was my mistake. pm add Zod. Now source common pipes validator. Here we go. I think now you can just simply import it. Exactly. So as you can see, it's imported from Zod. So we're saying that we're creating a validator pipe which implements pipe transform from NestJS. The constructor will accept an schema, which is a type of Zod schema. That's it. And because you're implementing pipe transform, you have to implement transform as well. So the transform will have a value which can be any as the argument, but we don't need the metadata really here. And the whole point is that you have to do like result, the same thing that I showed you on the other project, the simple one I meant. So this schema save parse, and the value should be sent there. If the result success was not true, so we should simply, I think we can just simply say throw new bad exception kind of thing, and just send the errors there like that. Let's imagine this one is going to be used for auth, and this should be post, and this is going to be sign in method. Let's also rename this one sign in, and it can be any. Of course, I don't like putting any's here, but just for now, there's no need to have a type. This is a sample mock project. And so how are we going to use this? Here, when we say we are going to accept the body, we also will tell the body what pipe should be used when it comes to the validation, when the body is received in the controller. And that's where we are going to say new Zod validator pipe, and I will just pass in my DTO, the schema there. So let's create a schema. Here I'm gonna be like sign in schema.ts port const sign in schema is going to be Zod. That object username should be a string, minimum 5 characters, for example. Z.string also. And I can make this strict as well. The strict means that you cannot send more fields. You cannot send additional fields that are not defined in this object. And also remember me, for example. The other point is that you have to also create your types. So when it comes to using the DTO, so for example, you want to create a type based on this schema, you can simply say export type sign in DTO or sign in type equals z_infer, and then their type of sign in schema. Oh no, I made a mistake. Sign in schema. So here I can simply now say sign in schema, and also here I can say body is sign in DTO, and I can access it here, console.log body, and return success true, for example. That's the simple kind of thing that I just wanted to show you how to build it. But basically you have to implement all of your logic in the service layer of NestJS, not in the controller. But we're just mocking this to understand how is it working. So I noticed a very stupid mistake that I've made after recording the whole video. And that is we have to really return the data here in order to get the access on app.controller to the body, actually, to the DTO. So you have to return the result.data if your validation was successful. Just don't forget that one. What am I going to do? I'm going to just run the project now. pm start dev. I need postman as well. Yeah, here is the postman. 3000 auth sign in. And if you send the post request, as you can see, the pipe is triggered, the body data is validated against the schema that we have, and now it's returning some issues. So it says you have to really send an object for me in the body of the request. So let's do that. Username, I don't know, Emma, and password. If I send it again, it's gonna be like, okay, this string must contain at least 5 characters, the username. Now it's working. So that's the way you can just integrate it to your NestJS frameworks. Now, maybe it's a good idea to show you what is the differences between Zod 4 and Zod 3.